on, guys? I'm gonna give you guys a chance to come into the conversation. I hope that you're doing well. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World and the Black Business School, and we are going to talk about something that is a little bit different from our typical topic, but it's actually quite related and quite connected when you dig down deeper into it. But before I get started, I want to welcome my good friend and respected colleague that I've worked with for many years, Nomalanga Mushali Moses. She's joining us today. How you doing today, Norma?
I'm doing great, boys. How are you?
Doing very well, very well. And everybody should know that Nomalanga is joining us all the way from Botswana, which the other side of the world from a lot of you. But that kind of shows, what we got going on here with intelligent Black media. It's a global thing. We're reaching all around the planet. And so with technology, you can pretty much do anything. We have students in the Black Business School from all over the world, so it's pretty awesome. And I want to say hi to Rob and Valerie and Rebecca. How you doing? And who else is in here? I'm looking at some more of the people that have just come in. We're super early, so if you're watching this live, this is early in the morning. I see or Azalea. How are you? So do me a favor, everybody, before we get started. Shout out your city, shout out your business, and shout out your dream. So you can do 3 separate shout outs for yourself. We can do 1 of the 3, 2 of the 3, or all 3, depending on how you want to do it. But I want to hear about your city that you're coming from, and your business and your dream. Okay, so Jermaine, how you doing, Jermaine and Myron? So Noma, I'm going to okay, here Myron is from Detroit. Let's see, I see Sharif, I don't know what city Sharif is in, but Sharif is here. Good to see you, Sharif. Just Bar is from Atlanta. Jacqueline, how are you? Maryland is out of Philly. Cizo, how you doing, Cizo? Big Jim is out of Pittsburgh. Norvell, Memphis. Andrew says hello. How are you? Validus says screw the Democratic Party. That don't sound like a city, a business, or a dream, but that's all good. I agree with you. Let's see. I'll read some more of the cities before we get started. Okay, Tony says he's Nigerian, born in America, from Baltimore. All right. Miss Cable is from Memphis. Garnell from Savannah, Georgia. I see Dallas, ATL. Chicago here, own travel agency, building family legacy, says Rob. That's what I'm talking about. Kumar, Louisville, minority teacher recruitment. Karen, how are you? Rhonda, good morning. Sheriff, good morning. Okay, all right. So and Junie from Louisville. I had a good friend named Junie from Louisville. Junie Anthony. Junie died. He actually died of a heart attack. About maybe I think less than a decade ago. He grew up right across the street from my house, and he went to Mayo High School, and he was my buddy back in the day. R.I.P. to Junie. Yeah. I mean, with black men die young all the time. And that's the reason why, you and I've talked a lot about, health and stuff like that. I know you've always been into health and taking care of yourself. And you were actually, Nomalanga was Mrs. Botswana in 2012. You can't do that without being health conscious. Well, it's hard to do that anyway. I actually got into it maybe a couple years ago when my blood pressure had gotten so high, I couldn't get an insurance policy. Because they were like, oh, we're not going to insure somebody that we think might die at any moment. And I was like, holy crap. So I started running, and I'm proud to say that yesterday I did a half marathon, and it was painful as hell. I never thought I'd ever be doing stuff like that.
I'm proud of you too, boys.
Thank you. Yeah, and other good news was I went back to get another life insurance policy, and the second time around, they not only gave me insurance, but they gave me a preferred rate. They said that your vitals and everything are so good that we're going to charge you a much lower price because your health is so good. So it's been like a really amazing journey, and that's why I like to share it with people, because you can't change your life. You just got to take those baby steps. So Nomalanga, let me ask you this. So did you hear about Kylie Jenner and when Forbes announced her as the youngest self-made billionaire? Did you see that story?
Yes, it's been going around for a while, and I really took issue with the part where they said that she was self-made. And I remember posting and saying, well, look, good for her, because there are a lot of brats who are born to millionaire and billionaire families that don't do what she's done. So that's great that she did that, but let's not call her self-made, because she's not self-made.
Okay, so when you say she's not self-made, let's start there. And actually, there's an update to this story. There's an update in terms of Kylie admitting that she's not self-made, which I think made sense, from a business standpoint, just from a logic standpoint. But why did you feel that Kylie wasn't self-made? Like specifically, what were some of the issues that came up for you?
Well, first of all, she's from a famous family. So really, if any of them sell anything, it's gonna sell, right? So she capitalized on the fame of her family. I imagine she already also had a lot of money to invest in the business. There's so many things that you could say. But if you have a huge audience or you get in front of a huge audience, even if your product sucks, the very fact that by numbers, if 1 in every 10 people who hear about your product are going to buy it, if you have 1 million or 10 million or however many viewers, you're going to sell better than somebody who may have a better product, have researched it better, packaged it better, done everything better, and worked harder than you, but doesn't get it in front of as big an audience as you, or doesn't get the funding for their product.
Interesting. So you would say that maybe funding or just capitalization in general of her idea is what
right.
makes that she, because she's in front of a lot of people, which right there, I mean, the Kardashian platform alone, just the social media. If I were to go buy their social media and say, how much would you charge me to buy your Instagram, your YouTubes, your Twitters, your Facebook, I'd probably be paying several $100 million, maybe $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
So they wouldn't, so they're literally sitting on, an asset that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That doesn't even include, real estate, stocks, and things like that they own, or it's more so just the social media influence by itself. I think that's really interesting. So so do you think, how much of the the reaction to Kylie Jenner being proclaimed as the youngest self-made billionaire, how much of that do you think was also driven, just out of fairness to Kylie, how much of that do you think was also driven by just sort of a general disdain for wealthy people, or a general like jealousy, or screw that lady, you know what I mean? Like I can't stand the Kardashians. How much of that do you think drove people's reaction to that? Because there are some people
negative reaction.
Sorry.
People's negative reaction.
Yeah, like there are some people who said, "Oh, you're not self-made," and a lot of them, if you say, "Well, what does it mean to be self-made?" They couldn't even tell you what it means to be self-made, but they still were like, "Oh, she's not self-made." So, how much do you think is driven also by just sort of an irritation with the Kardashians? I don't like the Kardashians.
And not just the Kardashians. That there is a sense of loathing that some people have for people who do better than them, or who they perceive to do better than them. And unfortunately, those are people who will never do much better than where they are. So the only thing they can do is just loathe people who are doing better. So there's that element. But I think there's also the element of the fact that the Kardashians don't seem to be a family that is well respected and has scruples and high moral standards, right? I mean, we always go back to the fact that how we now know so much about Kim Kardashian was because she had a sex tape with Brandy's brother, Ray J. That's how she burst into the limelight, right? But then again, you also have to take into consideration that a lot of women made sex tapes and they didn't become millionaires and billionaires from it. So you always have to give them credit because everything they do, they capitalize on, right? So you always have to give them credit for that. Then the other thing is that the Kardashians, until recently, I've heard Kim Kardashian talking about mass incarceration. They always seem to be just a self-serving family, never care about anybody except themselves. So I think there's that element as well. But I don't want to dismiss the idea that people who are losers in life really, really get mad when other people succeed. You can't ignore that either.
Well, everybody who's watching, by the way, I'm talking to Noma Lango Mushali Moses. She and I are discussing Kylie Jenner and her admission that she's not a self-made billionaire. I think a lot of people said, no, duh, of course you're not. But maybe she never, again, Forbes put that label on her. She didn't put the label on herself. She just went out and did what she's doing and making her money. Do me a favor, if you're watching, please stop right now. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the thumbs up button, the share button, subscribe button. Please do that. That's really important. We need your help with that to share the message of intelligent Black people throughout the world. Also, if you want to support intelligent Black media, you can actually do that by going to intelligentblackpeople.com. It's intelligentblackpeople.com. We're now on iTunes. So you can download us on iTunes by looking at my name, Boyce Watkins. And also you can actually get text alerts by texting the word Boyce to 31996. If you text Boyce to 31996, we'll let you know when we go live. Some of you just got a text just now. That's why you're here right now. Okay, so
can you also please support us at the Fly Nubian Queen channel?
Yes. Norma Langa is at flynubianqueentv.com. So if you want to go check out an awesome network for women, where you hear perspectives from amazing Black women like Norma Langa, like Vicki Dillard, like Danielle Pierce, Danica Marie. There's so many. Oh gosh, I see Simone.
Bianca Blanco.
Who else?
Bianca Blanco.
Rashida,
Ronick.
Rashida, yeah, there's so many people, and I feel bad because I'm gonna miss somebody's name, but literally, I think that there's like 15, 20 contributors that are coming together, really reshaping narratives, changing conversations, and I love that. So let's dig in. Now, some of you may say that the Kardashian story or the Kylie Jenner story is old news. Well, I'm gonna tell you, Myron, it ain't old news, brother. Let me tell you why it ain't old news. It's not old news because just yesterday or a couple of days ago, Kylie admitted that she wasn't a self-made billionaire. And it's never old news when I talk about it, because I'm a finance professor and I can see insights that other people can't see. So I can talk about something that a million people have discussed, but here on this platform, you're always going to get another angle, another perspective, because I don't just talk about things, I analyze things and break them down and chop them into little pieces. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Kardashians in terms of how they got to where they are now. Even if Kylie Jenner is or is not a self-made billionaire, or on her way. I think two things are true. One, we know that she's on her way to being a self-made billionaire. According to Forbes, if I'm not mistaken, her net worth is about $360 million and growing, by almost $100 million a year. She's gonna be a billionaire at some point. It's like LeBron James. Like LeBron's predicted to be a billionaire, people like that. So she's on her way. The second thing about the Kardashians that's interesting is, when people call them the Kardashians, there's a reason for that, right? We know how they got started. They got started with the sex tape with Kim Kardashian and Ray J back in the day. Now, the thing about that that's interesting is, on one hand, we've seen other people try that, as you mentioned. Lawrence Fishburne's daughter, Lawrence Fishburne, who's on Blackish, his daughter, Montana, she said, I think if I'm not mistaken, she said that she was friends with Kim Kardashian. And Kim basically was schooling her on the game and said, girl, just make a sex tape. That's how I blew up, right? If I'm not mistaken, I got to double check that, but I could have sworn that she said that they had a conversation. And so this little Black girl growing up thinking that she's not a Black girl, apparently, like she doesn't understand that the rules are different for white and Black people. She goes and makes a lot of sex tapes. I mean, I'm sure she put a lot more, like 100 to 1 in terms of, sex tape labor input that she put in compared to Kim, and all she became was a porn star. And in fact, years later, she was actually preaching the gospel to other young women, saying, do not do what I did. Do not do what I did, because she ended up in this whole other space that Kim didn't end up in. Now that's true. But then what's interesting, though, is you have to give the Kardashians some credit in their ability to monetize and capitalize off of what's there. A lot of people are given the same assets and the same opportunities, but financially intelligent people can see the same thing that you see, the same plot of land, the same job opportunity, the same whatever, sex tape, right? In this particular case, and they will see something different from what regular people see. So the Kardashians were able to sort of flip this into a higher level. I'm gonna tell you this little quick story, and then I would like to get your take on this, Norma. But I actually talked to some people that were familiar with the creation of Bossip.com, which became a massive website. It still is pretty big, worth millions of dollars. They started it with a $6 investment. And one thing that I've been told about Kim Kardashian is that in the beginning, when Bossip was just getting started and when nobody knew who Kim Kardashian was calling them and feeding them stories that they would run on their website. Kim she didn't take nothing personal. If you called her a hoe, she didn't care. She was a boss. She's like, well, what I think about myself is all that matters anyway. She didn't get all like, oh, I can't believe that called me.
Any publicity is good publicity, right?
Right.
Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, the impression that I got was that she was a straight boss, that Kim was just like, oh, they called me a hoe. Well, why don't you run that story? And then what I'll do is I'll do this. and then we'll just talk about it more and more and more. I mean, she just, it's completely different from, because a lot of us, we get caught up like, oh, I can't believe you said that about me, and you don't like black people, and blah, blah, blah. And from what I gathered, her whole thing was, I just want people to know who I am so I can build my empire. What are your thoughts on that when you hear the story that I just shared with you, as well as the other points?
Well, I think she's an opportunist, and I think that we have a tendency of thinking that opportunists, being called an opportunist, is always a negative thing. Whereas it just means that anything that happens to you or around you, you're able to capitalize on it and turn it into something positive or something that benefits you or benefits others. So that's what I see in Kim, is that she's an opportunist, but she uses her opportunities at a whole other level. So I think that's great. But another thing that I wanted to add to this whole thing about capitalizing is, and that the young Black lady who did a tape compared to Kim Kardashian who did a tape, is I think that people sometimes don't look at things with an analytical eye, okay? Kim Kardashian literally built herself. Like, she noticed that there was a trend after everybody fell in love with J-Lo's big booty. There was a trend of, if you have a big booty, you'll succeed. So she literally went and took her pancake behind and turned and added, I don't know what she's added, silicone or whatever it is, right? And then her face, she restructured. I'm not saying that young women should do this. I always have to be mindful of what I'm saying and why, okay? But I'm just telling you what she did, right? Then she went and reconstructed her face. She noticed that there was more of a celebration and embracing of African features, full lips. She did her lips up so that, and all the Kardashians have done that, mind you. Their lips are all like this. And it's not because they were born that way. It's artificial, but they understand that that's what now passes as a standard of beauty. So they've looked at everything. You have to not only be good at what you're doing, you have to look good while you're doing it. You have to get in front of it. It's a whole strategy that they all do, right? And it works. So it worked for Kim, and they've just multiplied it over and over. I remember even their mother had a talk show at one point. And you could tell with her too, her body looked great. So she was either exercising or she had modified it somehow. She also got in front of a lot of people, and she also was selling something. So they have like a system that they've put into place, and it works. So they just keep duplicating the system, which is really what a franchise is.
Interesting. Well, that's really true. Actually, I was talking today, actually on this very same channel, and I was basically saying that, if I could convince LeBron and Jay-Z to help me raise, $100 million to build 1,000 schools across America that are focused on business, I said, basically the four things I would teach the Black children when it comes to business that would literally transfer trillions of dollars in wealth in a generation is, I would teach them real estate, stock and bond investing, entrepreneurship, and how to create systems and institutions. Because institutions are what Black people need. We don't have institutions. That's why we beg white people for jobs and beg white people to educate our kids, because we don't understand institutions and how they're built. Institutions are built on systems and codes of conduct, procedures, ways of doing things, a process, right? And that's how, that's how wealthy people become wealthy. Wealthy people don't become wealthy with labor. They become wealthy with systems. And
right.
So ultimately, I think it's so any labor you put in should be the labor you put into building a system, not labor into like sweeping the floor or going and serving somebody so you can get a paycheck. And I think the Kardashians, as much as we can certainly say, they do come off kind of skanky. You can lay out, the cultural appropriation argument. Everything they're doing, they took it from Black women. We know that, right?
Right.
But that ain't gonna change shit. It ain't gonna change anything. We can be mad about it. Being mad ain't gonna do nothing to give you high blood pressure. Whatever. You know what I mean? So we can sit around and get mad, or we can actually learn. And I think that we can learn. One thing we can learn is, again, when Kim was sort of building up her brand, she didn't really get offended if people, did something or said something offensive or whatever, reacted a certain way. Her goal was to achieve the goal or to achieve the objective, which was building a family. So by the way, everybody, I'm talking to Nomalanga Mushali Moses. We're talking about Kim Kardashian and or actually Kylie Jenner being an alleged self-made billionaire. Kylie just admitted that she's not a self-made billionaire. Noma Langas, by the way, is at flynewbeingqueentv.com. That's flynewbeingqueentv.com. And also, I want to remind everybody that if you want to start your wealth building journey, on the 12th of April, we're going to do a 24-hour flash sale on Black Money 101, which is our introductory class when it comes to an introduction to the power of money. It's about, I think a few dozen hours of powerful content and lectures on everything from the economics of self-defense all the way down to understanding how money works and things like that. And so if you're interested in joining the program on the 12th, you'll get 70% off for 24 hours only. That's it. So I just want to let you guys know that this is going to happen on the 12th. So Noma, let me ask you this question. When you talk about self-made, what do you think it would take for somebody to be defined as a self-made anything, self-made millionaire, self-made billionaire, anything like that?
See, the thing is, I don't believe in self-made. And I think just before we went live, I was sharing with you that I started reading, well, it's actually an audiobook that I was listening to, but you could read the book too, a book called Outliers. And it talks about how people who we call overnight successes or self-made millionaires and self-made billionaires are never, ever really self-made. And it doesn't just talk about millionaires or just people who've accomplished a lot in terms of financially or building wealth. It talks about people who we think are extraordinary in anything, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Tiger Woods, even Serena and Venus Williams. If you get into their lives and really study them, you're going to see that they have a few things in common, which don't make them self-made. It's just, some of it is just chance. Some of it is their parents, it's their environment. It's just things that we may think are random, but when you put all these things together, they create brilliance, or they create extraordinary talent, extraordinary income, and so on. And the example that I was explaining, or that I was telling Dr. Boyce about just before we went live, was Bill Gates, who we all think is like, Microsoft, oh, wow, he's so brilliant, he dropped out of Harvard. There's always a story about them dropping out of Harvard, right? Or MIT or something, some Ivy League that they, thought, I don't need the Ivy League, I can do it without the Ivy League. But the reason why they can always drop out of these Ivy Leagues is that they've gotten an education prior to going to the Ivy League that is superior in terms of the results that it produces than the Ivy League. So in the example of Bill Gates, for instance, I remember the guy who was, reading the book out loud was saying that Bill Gates lived 5 minutes away from a library. And at that time, I'm not sure if it was the 60s or the 70s, nobody knew coding. Nobody had a machine that could code, but the library that he lived right next to had that facility, and he had access to it at night when people were sleeping, during the day when his parents are at work. So he was putting in hours and hours and hours. You always hear that story that you're never an expert at anything until you put in your 10,000 hours or 10 years. Well, he had that. So by the time he got to MIT or Harvard or wherever it was, he had already put in more than 4 years that he was going to spend at Harvard learning things. I keep saying Harvard, I think it's MIT. But he had put in more time learning how to do this than they could ever teach him at MIT, right? And it didn't take very long for him to go there and then realize that, whatever they're teaching me here is never going to be more than what I already know and what I can build based on this. Then there was the element of his family background. There was the element of the fact that when he was ready to go, his mom and dad were able to support him financially. There are all these factors that you can put into it. And I remember another factor was a lot of people who are believed to be very intelligent are usually born in the first 3 or 4 months of the year. So when you take them and put them in a group of people born in the same year as them, the person born in January is always going to excel. Well, not always, but more often than not will excel more than the child born in December. And when you look at it, like in the first grade, you're literally putting a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. And if you know anything about early childhood development, every 6 months, they go through huge leaps and bounds of growth and development. So you're literally taking kids that are a year apart in age and comparing them to each other. And then you're going to say the one born in January is really smart. Same thing in sports. Therefore, they start from a young age. But then what happens is when you pick this kid for the team or whatever, then they go to some special training, right? So the gap always increases. So the January, February, March kids are getting extra time with coaches. They're getting extra tutoring because people have already said they're so smart. And as the years go by the time that the difference in, that year difference doesn't make a difference anymore, they're 17, 18, they've already had so much put into them that now they believe, first of all, that they're superior in talent or brilliance or whatever it is, or ability. And the one born in December has had it dug into them from 5, 6 years old that, you know what, you're just not that fast. You're just not that bright, whatever it is. And that's how.
It almost sounds like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like,
Yes.
because I believe you're better, then I'm going to invest more in you.
Exactly.
And that's going to make you better, which is going to make me believe that I was right all along, right?
Right.
Like it's I had a cousin who used to go to elementary school, and they did what they did with a lot of black boys. They gave him a little test and said, "You're stupid," like that's what they do to all the black boys. That's why I
right
yes, out of public schools. And they and so because they tested him and told his mother like he's not as smart, he's a little slow. They put him in these special classes where the learning would be extremely, extremely slow. And in fact, there was no learning at all. I asked him, I said, so what do you do when you go to class every day? He said, we just sit there and the teacher reads to us. And I said, so they're not teaching you how to read yourself? And he said, no. So he graduates from high school not knowing how to read. So, what was a gap like this becomes a gap like that, because because people believe certain things about you, right? And then there's a million examples of that. And I think that you're absolutely correct. I mean, when you talk about outliers, I think now here's one thing that's really interesting. By the way, I see Charles Ingham. I see your question. Where can we see the movie you made a few years ago? I'm not really sure which movie you're referring to, but if you go to abncdigital.com, abncdigital.com, it stands for All Black National Convention Digital. abncdigital.com gives you access to all the movies that we've made, all the footage from all the All Black National Conventions, the event I did with Louis Farrakhan years ago, the ones I did with Cornel West. These are powerful learning tools for the family. So if you'd like to join, feel free to go to abncdigital.com. If I'm not mistaken, I think the first month might be free, so you can go give it a try. So anyway, to dig deeper into your point, I think that you're right. I think that you have, this idea that outliers just sort of, we romanticize the stories a little bit. And I think that's what you're alluding to, right? Like we romanticize it, like, you look at Bill Gates and you say, well, he was a regular guy just like you. And, one day he just, picked up a computer and then magically he's worth $1 billion or I don't know, like people like to connect a story with their business, right, or a story with, with the power of their brand. And it's always a really simple story where you miss all the fine print. And I believe that that's the difference between a lot of, so-called regular folks and the really successful people is the fine print. You don't get to see the little things that people do that's different from everybody else, that allows them to be an outlier, or little opportunities that they had.
And their environments are also very important.
Yeah,
which is why you can't say self-made.
Right. You can't. I don't think there's any such thing as a self-made. In fact, in the Black community, there should be no self-made millionaires. Nobody, your kids shouldn't be self-made. They should be made by you.
Right.
Made by the environment you create in your house. They should be made by the fact that you taught them how to start a business before the age. They should be made by the fact that you left them a life insurance policy that they used to plant the seeds to build their first business. They should be made by the fact that you left them an inheritance. They should be made by the fact that you are teaching them the discipline and the necessary skills that they need in order to be successful. Self-made should just be like done. Like, what the hell? Self-made means nobody that was supposed to help make you did anything.
Right.
And I think with you coming from Botswana, you understand that even better than everyone else, that like you talk about your family a lot, and the things that were done 40, 50, 100, maybe 70, 80 years ago, they impact your family to this day. And I think that that's really fascinating. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, you have to. I remember, I think I shared this story with you one time. I used to work as a college professor at a local college in Boston, because that's where I really live. But I remember having a conversation with one of my mentors. He was a man in his 70s who had been around in the civil rights era. He had gone to an HBCU, and he had mentored young Black professors, but I was the first non-African American born and raised in America that he mentored. And he always used to say to me, it's amazing how you respond to racism and unfairness. I find that a lot of people kind of think that it's just, it's how things go. But you have like a high level of outrage, and you talk back and push back in a way that I've never seen in my life. And that's because my environment growing up, and all the messages that were given to me growing up around Black people, right? Seeing a Black president, seeing Black mayors, everybody's Black. It puts in my mind that Blackness is superior, or not necessarily superior, but it's not inferior. But what I realize about America is that they tell a young Black child, especially a young Black boy, that they're bad, stupid, or something not good from a very, very young age. And sometimes people don't recognize that they've had that built into them until you're at work and all the racist people are treating you badly and you're just taking it, right? Or you explode one day because you don't even know how to handle it. Or you don't push back in a strategic and very deliberate and purposeful way. And that's what I think sometimes makes the difference. We're still back to saying that your environment creates the way you see things and the way you respond to things and how you will be successful or not successful.
Everybody, I'm talking to Nomalanga Mushali Moses from FlyNewbieandQueenTV.com, and we're talking about Kylie Jenner and her admission that she's not a self-made billionaire, which leads to a deeper conversation on what it means to be self-made. And I think that we both agree that there are few self-made millionaires, if any, and also that you shouldn't be self-made. Black people, white, whoever you are, you shouldn't be self-made. You should be made by the people who love you. Now, do me a favor, please stop right now. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please if you're on Facebook, give hearts and likes and shares. Please share this video to your Facebook page. Please do that right now. If you're on YouTube, please stop for a second. Please hit the thumbs up button. The thumbs up button really matters in terms of helping us to push the message of Black intelligence throughout the world. We're in a battle against ignorance, and ignorance is winning. So we all need to work together in order to get, push it for a community that creates an environment where intelligence is encouraged and not discouraged. There's so many examples of people in our community, Noma, that, like there was a little girl I read about who was homeschooled by her parents, and she was 16 on her way to law school. And then her brother was like 13 and he's in college, and she said that she used to be a bad student, and her mother took her out of school because she was discouraged by other Black people from being smart. Like she started feeling bad, because she was so smart, and they would make her feel bad. And I said, this is
You sound white.
Right. So it's like we have a few in our community. We have a few, millionaires that we make in the community, a few geniuses we make in the community, but we also have a few niggers that we make in the community. And I hate saying it like that, but we literally have a nigger factory in our community that literally mass produces and creates an environment that makes people into ignorant idiots that want to go out and destroy their lives. Like we train people to do that. So the same way you can make a self-made million, or the same way a village and an environment can make someone into a millionaire. Well, a village and an environment can make a person into, a person who can't read. They can make them into, a future convict. They can turn them into somebody who thinks they're supposed to play sports or rap for a living, right? The environment is everything, And so the other thought that I had, and I know that probably sounded harsh when I said that, but you know what I'm talking about. Tell me if you know what I'm talking about. The other thing that I will say is that when you're talking about, let me make sure I lost my point. I had a point. You know what? I'm going to rethink my point, and I want you to respond to what I just said, and then I'll bring the point back because I lost it. It totally disappeared. Go ahead.
Definitely. When you talk about homeschooling, when I was talking earlier about how everything happens to you from the age of about 5 years old, which is when we usually put our children into preschool. There have been studies after studies after studies, and not for nothing, I really have a hard time understanding why, if your child is in the United States public school system, you're not working your butt off to get them out. Because it's been shown that the messages that they're getting, first of all, the public school system was created by white people for white children, right? It was never created for us. And then we fought to get in, but it was never really for us, right? Then we've always been treated like we're these people who came into an environment, forced their way into an environment without being invited, right? Or unwanted. So you usually find that our children are labeled as having bad behavior, as being slow. So anything that they can label us to take us out of the classroom and put us somewhere else so that the good white people can continue with their journey of learning, right? It's special ed, it's behavioral. They say they have behavioral problems and kick them out of school. So it still goes back to how your environment shapes you. And then the reason why I started this point was that's what marks there's a preschool now. There's now a preschool to prison pipeline that has actually been articulated over and over and over, researched, documented. And it still comes down to the fact that the school system, as far as Black children are concerned, as far as specifically Black boys are concerned, is an environment that creates, when it's doing its best, is going to create a criminal or a person that just will not succeed very much in life. So it's up to us to kind of counteract that system or just remove our children from that system. But it still goes back to that making.
Yeah, and you're not, and I should let everybody know that Noma isn't just talking about this. Noma actually did this. She was dealing with a lot of racism and mistreatment on her job. So she set herself up with a business so she could quit her job. And then also because she had her business, she was able to take her kids out of public school and start homeschooling them. And she actually teaches a program on how she did that, like what her steps were. You can go to theblackHomeschoolGuide.com if you want to take a look. It's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com, THE, theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. Somebody please type that in and you can go check that out if you want to. Yeah, one thought the thought that I lost in my head, I don't know where it went, but it came back, was, when you talk about self-made, or you talk about outliers, or people that appear to be self-made but really aren't because they had advantages that other people didn't have. I will say this too, though. Another way environment does matter is that there are some people, though, who are given opportunities. People you can give every opportunity in the world to, and they're not going to make the right choices. They're not going to choose it. I mean, seriously, think about this. There was a time where Black people were not allowed to learn how to read and write. We get, locked up or killed for this. And then people get killed for even teaching us how to read and write. And then there was a time after that where education was limited, where there was certain knowledge that white people had in universities that we couldn't get access to, and that was it. Now all those barriers are gone. Like all those limitations are gone. If you could literally learn, get a master's degree level understanding of any topic with the information that's on your cell phone. Right. And so everybody has access to that same information, but some people take advantage of it. Some people don't, so you talk about like Bill Gates, for example, a man who built this multi-billion-dollar company because he had a library down the street that happened to have computer coding. Well, there were probably, 50,000 people that lived within a couple of miles of that same library who didn't become Bill Gates. Right. Or there were probably people that knew him and said, man, why are you spending all this time in the library? You should come to the party. You should come, and they didn't do it. And so I think that there's something to be said about, the choices of that individual. I can just remember when I was in college, I was like that. I was that guy, who would spend all this time in the library. Saturday night, you're more likely to see me studying than you were to see me partying. And I couldn't, I felt like an outcast a little bit. I remember being, well, yeah, I was, well, in Atlanta. Yeah. I remember, I was invited to join. All the fraternities invited me to join. Every single one of them approached me about joining. And I just didn't want to join because I just remember thinking, you guys spend a lot of time doing stuff that isn't going to make you successful long term. Like you're going to fail. Black men, that's when I was really learning how Black men are wired psychologically to fail. So many of us, it's white supremacy that teaches us these things, but we, sometimes consciously internalize this. We internalize a culture that just breeds bad outcomes, and like just little things. Like I remember I actually was one day, literally less than 24 hours away from joining a mega sci-fi. And no disrespect to the Qs or anything, but these guys, I remember thinking, you had sex with 50 women in the last year, you're going to catch AIDS if you do that, or I remember thinking like, you guys drink all the time. Like, I got uncles that are alcoholics. I don't want to be like them, and I remember, or just saying like, well, why aren't we studying more? Like we should be studying. We're Black men. We should be prepared for the future by learning, not by partying and drinking and doing stupid stuff. So I think that sometimes when we look at the environment and the importance of the environment, we've got to ask ourselves, what environment is being encouraged in the Black community? What is it coming from media? Is it coming from the school system? Is it coming from our own people? Like, and then the choices of the individual. I had a very nasty argument with a guy who was about twice my size. He was a big old football player because he was really mad at me because I rejected Omega Sci-Fi. I just said, I don't want to be part of that shit. I'm not ruining my life, with you assholes. These particular guys, not all Qs. I'm just talking about these particular guys. I just said, I don't want to be around you. And he was going to beat me up. I kid you not, he's going to beat me up. And I just remember saying to him, we've got the same damn opportunities. You're on a football scholarship. You're going to college for free. You got a chance to do whatever you want with your life. All you got to do is pick up a book. But instead of picking up a book, all your punk ass wants to do is pick up a bottle. All you want to do is sit around and do all this stupid stuff that's going to lead to failure. And I said, here's what's going to happen. I was 19 years old when I said this to him. I said, in 20 years, some whack ass, I was like, whack ass nigga like you. That's how I just keep it honest. How I talk to him. I said, some whack ass nigga like you is going to get mad at me because I'm successful and you're not. You're going to get mad at me because I got money and you don't. And I'm going to remember that 20 years ago, when we were in college, when it came time for us to decide, do we want to pick up a book or pick up a bottle? I picked up the book, you picked up the bottle. When it came time to decide, do I want to go to the library or do I want to spend all my time at football practice? I chose to go to the library. You're investing in a football career that is going to end in a year and a half. You're not going to the NFL because nobody from the University of Kentucky goes to the NFL and lasts for longer than 2 weeks anyway. Right. So basically, my point back then, I was still young. So I was kind of beginning to understand and be able to articulate the things that I understand very well right now. My point back then is that a lot of Black men and a lot of Black people don't hit the pinnacles of success because we invest so much energy, so much money, so much time into the wrong things, into things that are not going to give us long-term benefit. And that's why many of us suffer. That's why we don't, so we can sit back and get mad like, oh, Kylie Jenner this and she's a skank and the Kardashians. It might all be true. It might all be true. But sitting back and being mad about somebody else's success when you're not maximizing your own opportunities, that makes you the damn fool. Seriously. Right. And I'm not going to be a damn fool. I was a fool for part of my life, but I'm not going to be a fool for the entire time. No Malanga, please, your thoughts.
I wanted to agree with you about the choices, but also go back to what our main point is that your environment matters and your choices are affected by your environment, right? So you talked about how sometimes there was a time where Black people were not allowed to read. You could get killed for even trying to read or trying to learn how to read. But you have to understand that because of that, a pattern and a culture emerged where reading was not something that we saw happening. So I can say for myself, some of the best money I've ever made in the last 10 years was just from my communication, whether I was writing, making a video, making a speech, a presentation, right? But I know that one of the reasons why I'm a good communicator is because when I was growing up, my father was a school teacher and our garage had shelves all around and full of books. And I could disappear into the garage for hours and hours and hours and just read and read and read. So I fell in love with reading and then fell in love with writing. So that manifests later in life. But what about the child who may have been a good reader, but didn't have access to hundreds and hundreds of books, right? Or their father and mother maybe didn't even have both a father and mother, didn't encourage reading. My father encouraged us to turn off the TV. If he saw us with the TV on, he was like, turn that thing off and pick up a book. That was his thing, right? So the culture was there. You see, that's what was encouraged. So our choices, even though we had some choices, they were also shifted by my father's, wagging finger, right? And then even when I was in school, I went to private school. It was mandated that we read every single day, and then our parents had to sign to say that we read every day. So those are, you see what I'm saying? These are things, these are patterns and cultures that are honed. And then now I'm raising children who love reading because I'm a reader. They see me reading, so they read. They see their father read. You see, so there's a culture that emerges that impacts their choices. Now, if they saw us doing something different, that would also impact their choices. So yes, they have choices, but your choices are still impacted by the environment that you're in. And the culture that is created in your home and in your community.
Mm-hmm. That is true. So maybe the original choice is the choice in deciding consciously what kind of culture that we need to have that's going to give us the outcomes that we're looking for, right?
Right.
And I'm not even saying, I mean, we know that, the horrible history of African Americans in terms of how others have always wanted to shape our culture. To this day, there are people that want to shape what we read in media and how we think based on that. They want to shape what we're learning in school. They want to shape, where we're putting our energy, economically, where we're putting our spending power, economically, et cetera. And I'm just saying to people that these things have the greatest impact on you, and the greatest negative impact on you when you're not conscious, when you're unconscious. So when I see places like I look at theroot.com, for example, which is a white-owned news publication that pretty much just loves to crap all over anything that involves Black consciousness. That's to me a prototype of mind control that occurs that's really pushed upon the entire Black community, because I'm telling you, any Black person or white person who discourages Black people from becoming more conscious is an enemy to the community. I mean, they might as well put on a clan robe, because it's the unconscious behavior and the unconscious sort of absorbing of just false and misleading information that leads you to create environments that create these horrible outcomes, right? So to change an environment, you must take the time to not lean on your unconscious habits that have been shaped through a toxic white supremacist environment, and consciously adjust. It's like for me, when I was overweight and my blood pressure was super high, it was because I was unconsciously eating. Every day I would just, eat whatever I wanted. I would do whatever I felt like doing, because these were habits that were formed since childhood. That was my environment. So I'd unconsciously formed an environment.
You're from the South.
What did you say?
I said, you're from the South. They're all about this.
Yeah, exactly. I'd sort of unconsciously internalize, a lifestyle that, was quite frankly going to kill me. And so in order for me to adjust it, it wasn't just a simple task. I had to be very conscious and say, okay, wait, before I eat something, let me read the label. I wasn't used to that. You got to be conscious to change your habits. You consciously adjust your habits. Okay, I got to get up and go running this morning, even though normally I just roll out of bed and go to work. No, I got to get up and I got to go run. I got to consciously do that.
I actually remember.
Right. So consciousness is something that every Black person must possess. Because in order for you to pull yourself out of the deep-seated subconscious brainwashing that has been just dripped into your soul at the very core, that affects your environment to the very core, that leads to people like Nipsey Hussle getting murdered by people from his own damn neighborhood, that subconscious behavior is only going to be modified through extreme, committed, conscious choices in which we consciously reshape the environment. So I think that the idea is that the choices matter, but the choice to create the environment where you're making additional choices matters also, right? So you don't just look at, how you respond to the game and what you're playing. You must also take a step back and say, how do we reshape the game so that when we make unconscious decisions, they're going to be productive decisions, right? So again, like for example, in our household, I got a PhD, Alicia has a PhD. Ain't no child in this household growing up not understanding the value of education. They see us reading every day like it ain't nothing. We're talking about college like it ain't nothing. They're not even able to imagine a world where you don't go to college. They're like, what do you mean? That's like not going to middle school, right? And so a lot of that is sort of an example. I think not that we're a prototype or a perfect family. I'm not laying that out there. Like I'm not trying to say we're better than anyone. But what I am saying is that the environment makes certain decisions very easy. Because it's built for education, right? The little 11-year-old, I kid you not, it's so funny. The kids act like they don't hear you, like they're not paying attention to you. The little 11-year-old goes upstairs and sets up her office. She says, I have my office upstairs. I'm like, your office? What are you going to do with your office? And she's like, oh, I'm going to do my homework in there. And so I noticed in her little office, it's set up just like my office. And she's got a little pencil holder set up just like mine, and she's got, I'm like, oh my God, they're actually listening. And or then another time she hurt her leg, and her mom said, oh, she's going to take an ice bath because she wants to bring down the swelling. I said, where did she learn to do an ice bath? She was like, well, you do ice baths all the time when you go running. And I was like, oh my God, like these, so my point is that I think that all of us as parents, we have not just an obligation, but an opportunity to really shape an environment where natural choices are just going to be productive choices, But if you don't consciously choose to break cycles, like for example, the cycle of everybody going to work for a white man, break that cycle in your household. Have conversations with your kids that just deviate from that. Let them know they have other options. And then what you'll find is your kids will just sort of naturally follow along with whatever you said, because that's all that they know, right? So Norma, what are your thoughts?
I wanted to give a quick example about not just always be talking about wealth and financial success. In our culture, which has a history of very successful marriages and families, one of the things that they do is when a young man and a young woman get married, they actually get almost like a little quick tutorial on how to be successful. And what I remember about every single tutorial that every woman who's about to get married is they're encouraged, once they get married, to be done with their single friends and go make some married friends. Why? Because the habits that are in you as a single person, and whatever you're doing as a single person has to be different than what you have to do to build a family and build a marriage and be successful in that arena. So it just goes to show that they encourage you to change your environment because they understand the impacts that your environment has on the decisions that you make. Then the other example that I was going to bring up is Serena and Venus Williams. You know that their father started teaching them how to play tennis at like 3 and 4 years old. And these are homeschoolers, mind you. So when other kids were at school learning ABC 1, 2, 3, they learned that, but they also spend a majority of their day hitting balls on a tennis court. And they lived in a poor neighborhood. I can't remember, is it Compton or Crenshaw? Compton, yeah. And they had a little tennis court, again, down the street, right? Down the street. It's always something down the street, right? They had a tennis court down the street that their father used to walk them up to and hit balls with them all day. So again, by the time you see them as teenagers and people are like, oh my God, you can tell they have athletic builds, both of them in different ways. But so they have the talent in them. But the thing is, it was honed from such a young age that by the time they burst into the scene as teenagers, and maybe these teenagers have now been playing tennis since they started middle school or high school, they're 10, 15 years ahead of these kids because their father invested in them, created the environment, and spent the time for them to be not just successful, like superstars, brilliant, high talent. And that's what it takes. And the last thing I'll do also is talk about, I've heard of this little Einstein thing. Where they teach little babies how to read and all these other things. But one of the things that I noticed is that much as I hate to say it, white parents are very diligent. Like my baby's gonna read by the time she's 2 or by 3 or by 4. So by the time they get into the school system and they get tested, the Black kid is arriving just now starting to read, So of course, the other kid who's been doing little Einstein or whatever it is going to do better than the kid who's had their mother or father read to them every day and do all these little Einstein things and has put them in these little programs and things. So again, it's not that the white kids are better in school. They appear that way because their parents did something before they even arrived in school. I've seen, to me, that's too white and I'm not gonna do it. I've seen people read, these earphones on a pregnant belly and they're like, I'm reading to her while she's in my belly so that when she comes out. Those are just, they're so extreme that I'm not gonna do it and I don't encourage anybody to do it. But it still speaks to the mindset that the parent has for creating an environment for success for their child, right? In whatever it is, whether it's sports or it's reading or wealth or whatever it is. You have parents who create trust funds for their kids, health insurance, life insurance. Master P started his whole record label, from what I've read, from a life insurance policy that was only $10,000 at the time. And then he built something into it. So just one simple decision, right? Where you have $10,000 extra that somebody else didn't have and you do something with it. So it's the environment and the choice.
Well, you guys, I hope you guys can hear that. This is Normal Language with Shelly Moses from FlyNewBeingQueenTV.com. And we're talking about Kylie Jenner not being a self-made billionaire. Now, Kylie just admitted that she's not self-made, and which led us to a conversation about what it means to be self-made. But how do you make something? How do you? It's something. Everything is made by something, right? So how do you become conscious about making the things that you want to actually see and mass producing that? Do me a favor, if you're on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button. Facebook, please hit the share button, subscribe button, and all that stuff. Also, if you want to text notification when we go live, text the word voice to 31996. 31996, that's the number. So text voice to 31996, and I'll send you a notification whenever we go live. Also, don't forget we're on iTunes and SoundCloud, so you can listen to the podcast in addition to watching. And also, I want to mention to everybody that if you want to learn things like how to invest in the stock market, you can actually get a free month because you're here. You can get a free month in my Black Stock Market program. It's a very popular class. People love it. I can teach you how to invest very, very quickly. It'll make a big difference in your family. If you're interested, go to theblackstockmarketprogram.com, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. Somebody please type that in so other people can see it. So Noma, let's finish up here on this conversation. So one of the things that I did observe was I was paying attention to how Kylie Jenner, makes her money and how she got, what she does have. And I think that we both agree that, that even being given an opportunity doesn't always mean you're separated from the pack, right? Being given the opportunity, because it's a couple of things. One, I've noticed really ambitious people just have a way of creating opportunities where there were none. That's the first thing. But then two, I've seen people who are unambitious, who are given, the whole world's given to them on a silver platter, and because their mindset is just backward, they just, don't want the opportunity. Like they say, there's an acronym for the word POUR. POUR stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. And again, I think one perfect example is the fact that you can open up your cell phone and learn damn near anything you want to learn. But how many people open up their cell phones to learn as opposed to chit-chatting on social media or talking about what some celebrity said or whatever? So if you, as a person that, believes in success, that believes in hard work, that believes in achieving goals, kind of had, a couple pieces of advice you share with people, what would that be? Because you've accomplished a lot. You're a professor. You were Mrs. Botswana in 2012. You're a great student. You're a mother. You've done so many great things in your life. A business owner. So, what would you say are some of your secrets in terms of being able to really, go for what you want?
One thing I will say is I think that you have to identify just one thing that you can contribute that will either solve a problem that somebody has, right? And these are business principles. I don't have to tell you that. You have to identify one thing that will solve a problem for somebody or that fulfills a need for somebody. And then you as yourself also have to have something about you that contributes in some way to that. And then from there, you're on, right? And it's just that simple, I think. And that's my business principle. And then my other one is I go around, and I learned this when I was doing sales, and there's no business that runs without sales, is I go around making friends. And when I find quality people, I do business with them. I find a way to do business with them or form partnerships with them or do something that's impactful with them. And those are my two guiding principles.
Yeah, I think that's an important principle. You talk about being, the opposite of being self-made, right? Where you're made by an environment that affords you the opportunity to make specific decisions that are going to lead to success. A lot of your environment is shaped by your network. Like a lot of people, some of you have heard this. Tell me if you've heard people say this, where they say if your 5 best friends are all broke, you're going to be the 6th, right? Yeah. And that's true. I think that having people around you that will encourage you as opposed to discourage you, that can, lend you money if you need help that way, lend you, good advice, give you additional contacts. I mean, that's like your bank. That's your bank, because what these people are giving you when they give you a strong network, when they are willing to lend money to you or offer support or some sort of labor to help you get your thing off the ground, whatever you're doing, that's capital. All that's capital. Those are different forms of capital they're giving you. So that's what a bank does. A bank allows you access to capital. Well, people must understand that all capital isn't just money. Capital can be, if somebody really powerful gives me their access to their network, that's a huge amount of capital. Like, for example, so if you look at a family like the Kardashians, and Kylie Jenner is saying, hey, I want to be the next lipstick mogul in America, even if her family doesn't invest a penny in her, even if they say, look, we're not giving you any money, but we'll give you access to our contacts, they've given her about $100 million in capital, because their contacts are amazing, So basically, put yourself in spaces where around you that can offer you capital, that can offer you support, and help you achieve your goal. I think that's really important. So if you can't
I don't
change,
want to embarrass you boys, but I'm going to say this anyway.
oh, go ahead.
Some of the best business tips, strategies that I learned from Boyce's mentorship. Some of the best money that I ever made were from partnerships that I had with Boyce. And it all started with me being willing to just learn and volunteering my services. I think at the time you had some blogs and I wanted to write. And that's how I formed the mentorship relationship with you. And that just goes back to when you build your relationships, you put yourself in the right environment, and you have to be willing to also serve. I think that's important. And I think that's not said enough, that you have to be willing to serve without necessarily getting anything back.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, and it's great. It's been great working with you. And I think that, now that I'm really processing that, I would say that, yeah, I do remember that. I remember you reached out and I thought that was really great. And what I also respect is that, you understand like codes of conduct. And I really think that that's your African background. Like we've had times where, business was tough or things would go weird or whatever. And you were never a person that would just come at, like some angry email, like, what the hell is this, blah, blah, blah. It was always like, okay, how do we figure this out? How do we solve this problem to preserve the business relationship? And I think that's something that I really believe African Americans can learn from, in the sense that we tend to, because we're so traumatized, I think we tend to re-traumatize each other because, people love to make Facebook posts about how if you make me mad, I'm gonna cut you off. Well, just know every time you cut off a person, you could be, well, you're right, I'll cut you or cut you off. Right. Yeah. And every time you cut somebody off or every time you end a relationship, it's like a business throwing capital out the window. Like that's one less person that you can call, one less person you can get advice from, one less person that you have in your network. And now there are some people that have to go, right, because they're persistently toxic. But then there are some situations where it's just a misunderstanding and it can be resolved with a phone call. So if you're too scared to pick up the phone and make that call, then you could end up ruining a relationship over something where they thought that you meant this and you thought they meant that and you never talked about it. So I think that that's a testament to you being a great partner, in terms of business, in the sense that we, the goal was always to just say, okay, how do we just figure this thing out so we can keep moving forward and keep being assets, in each other's lives. And so I encourage everybody listening. I'm using that personal example, and Noma brought it up as well. I'm glad she did, to just sort of encourage you guys, make friends, make peace, share love. Do that before you start sharing how angry you are at somebody, because again, being mad ain't gonna do nothing but raise your damn blood pressure. So don't get mad. Look for a solution. So thank you very much, Noma. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, boys. I'd like to say one more thing, if you don't mind. I want to encourage our audience to support our nonprofit organization. I've shared with Boyce that I started an initiative here for underprivileged young girls who are in school, but sometimes they miss school because of their monthly periods and they don't have sanitary pads for their periods. I know that's uncomfortable for men, but that's a fact. That's what's happening. And I've started an initiative where we're providing free pads for them, and we could use your support. So please go to Pads for Our Girls. We have a Facebook page. It's called Pads for Our Girls. And we also have a website called padsforourgirls.com, padsforourgirls.com. And I would really appreciate your support.
All right. So padsforourgirls.com. Okay. So this is to provide sanitary pads for young girls. Underprivileged girls. Okay. So if somebody please type that in, it's padsforourgirls.com, padsforourgirls.com. So I'm especially asking the fellas to please consider going and making a donation. This kind of thing is very, very important. And also obviously to the women as well. And so thank you for doing that, Noma. I think that kind of work is very important. Also, you guys know that I've taken a special interest in the case of Albert Wilson, who I don't know if you heard that story, Noma Langa, but he's a young Black man who was a college student who basically was alone in his apartment with a white girl. And
oh, yes, and kissed her and spent 5 years in prison.
Well, he's got 12 years in prison, and he was with her for 5 minutes alone.
Oh, for 5 minutes, 12 years.
And never had sex with her. She didn't even dispute that. and there's no evidence. And she says that he raped her, but they were alone for 5 minutes, and he got 12 years in prison. And so if you want to go check out the case, I'm taking a special interest in this. You can go to freealbertwilson.com. This is it free. I want to say it's freealbertwilson.com. Let me double check and make sure I have the name right. Yes, freealbertwilson.com. So please share that with as many people as you can, because this is just atrocious, unbelievable. So thank you very much, Noma Langa. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, boys. Always a pleasure.
All right. So if you want to see the Noma Langa show, you can go to flynewbeingqueentv.com. That's flynewbeingqueentv.com. Everybody watching, please hit the thumbs up button. And please hit the thumbs up button before you go. Also, if you want to support Intelligent Black Media and become a patron, we give you lots of free stuff in exchange for your support. You can go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. Also, don't forget, on the 12th, we're going to do a 24-hour flash sale, 70% off Black Money 101. Just for 24 hours. So it's on the 12th. So just be ready. I'll send out a notification to you guys and let you know when it starts. So I hope you'll come check that out as well. So thank you again. And you guys have a great day. And we will see you soon. Bye-bye.